The package came on Thursday afternoon when it was raining. Nothing interesting ever seemed to happen in the small town of Briarwood, so it was just another day. That day was different, though, as Mr. Jenkins, the mailman, went around. He saw a strange package written to the Wilson family. Mr. Jenkins had never seen a package like this before. The surface of the small wooden box was carved with fancy designs. The only mark on the box was a strange symbol etched on the lid. There was no return address. The strange thing didn't bother Mr. Jenkins, who took it and gave it to the Wilsons, thinking it was probably a gift from a strange cousin. When the package arrived at the Wilson home, it caused a lot of interest and wonder. Emily, David, and their teenage son Jake Wilson sat around the kitchen table and looked at the strange box. "What do you think it is?" It made Emily's eyes wide with wonder. David said, "I don't know," and he turned the box over in his hands. "But there's only one way to find out." David carefully lifted the lid of the box with shaking hands. A small silver key was inside, tucked away between layers of tissue paper. "A key," Jake screamed. "What's it for?" The Wilsons looked at the key carefully, trying to figure out what it was for, but other than the way it was designed, it wasn't particularly interesting. "Well, there's only one way to find out," David said, his voice a little racy. "Let's see if it unlocks something." After that, the Wilsons set out to figure out what the strange package was all about. The Wilsons looked all over the house for hours before they found a small secret door in the corner of the attic. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years because it was full of spider webs and dust. "Do you think this is what the key is for?" What did Emily ask? Her voice was almost a whisper. David nodded, and his heart was beating fast with excitement. "There's only one way to find out." David put the key in the lock and turned it, but his hands were shaking. The door opened with a click, showing a narrow staircase that led down into the dark. "Should we go in?" Jake asked, but his voice was full of doubt. David thought about it for a second and then nodded. "We got this far. We need to check out what's down there." The Wilsons went down into the dark, and the sound of their steps echoed off the stone walls. As soon as they got to the bottom of the stairs, they were in a dark room with strange symbols and old objects. Emily said, "It looks like some kind of archaeological site." Her voice was hard to hear over their breathing. They heard a noise coming from the dark before they could go any further. There was a low, deep growl, and then there was the sound of something moving across the floor. The Wilsons turned to run away out of fear, but it was too late. They saw something out of the darkness that was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was tall and thin, and its eyes and claws were bright red and very sharp. "What is that thing?" Jake cried out in fear, and his voice was shaking. But before they could do anything, the thing lunged forward with its claws spread wide. While running for their lives, the Wilsons' hearts were beating with fear. As soon as the Wilsons came out of the secret room, they were back in the attic, gasping for air and shaking with fear. "What was that thing?" Emily asked, her fear making her voice shake. "I don't know," David said, his mind full of questions. "But whatever it is, we have to find a way to stop it." Without wasting any time, the Wilsons set out to find out what was inside the strange package and who was inside it. In their search for solutions, they looked all over the internet for anything that might help them understand what they had seen. They finally found a set of old writings that talked about a powerful object called the Key of Shadows after hours of study. Legend has it that the key could open the gates to the underworld and let monsters from the deepest levels of hell roam freely among the living. The Wilsons came to understand as they put together the clues. The strange package and the mystery key were all part of a plan to let the creature loose on the world. There was still hope, though. From what the books say, a strong spell could destroy the Key of Shadows and close the gates to the underworld for good. With a renewed drive, the Wilsons set out to find the spell's ingredients. They searched the town for magical items and rare herbs. They worked hard because they knew that what happened to the world depended on them. The Wilsons knew that the creature itself would be their last test as they got ready to cast the spell. With what they had learned and the strength of their beliefs, they went down into the secret chamber again, ready to face the evil that was there. The thing was waiting for them, its eyes filled with evil as it got ready to attack. The Wilsons were ready, though. With a defiant cry, they let the spell's power out, putting all of their strength and determination into a single, powerful magic. The words echoed through the room, and the Key of Shadows started to crack and break into pieces. Its dark energy spread out into the air. The thing disappeared into thin air with one last ear-splitting roar, leaving only a weak trace of its presence. The Wilsons came out of the room tired but happy, knowing they had saved the world from something worse than death. The strange package and the mystery key were both parts of a sinister plan to destroy and cause chaos around the world. But one brave family stopped that plan, and the world was safe again. When the Wilsons stood there as the sun went down, they knew they would never forget the strange package that had changed their lives forever. Still, they knew they were stronger and tougher than they thought possible, and were ready to face any problems that came their way. They went back to their normal lives in the small town of Briarwood, but they knew they would always remember their amazing journey and know that the biggest mysteries can sometimes lead to the biggest discoveries. After a few months, things went back to normal in Briarwood. As the Wilsons went about their daily lives, they knew they would never forget what had happened in their attic that terrible day. But just when they thought the trip was over, something else came up that puzzled them. As Emily cleaned out the attic one sunny afternoon, she found a small wooden box tucked away under some old books. She was interested, so she opened the box and saw a note inside. It was written in beautiful writing.